Good afternoon. Hello. Welcome back. I'm Chip Towers. This is Mike Griffith of Dog Nation, and this is the Chip and Griff Show. And we're so glad to be back with you on this beautiful, starting to feel a little bit like fall afternoon. Not quite there, but it looks like it's going to start feeling that way a little bit.
Tell me about the weather. We're going to do a weather report. Instead of talking about the football game, let's talk about the weather. No, if only it was that simple, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, we'll give the floor to Mike Griffith, who can't wait to get into this game, the Georgia LSU game. This is our first chance to talk to you since then. There's been a lot of copy up on Dog Nation. There's been a lot of chatter, really everywhere, especially with regard to the quarterback play in the LSU game and for Georgia going forward. I got a Towers take up there on Dog Nation right now. Just looking at the whole situation, just kind of factually. I mean, just sort of breaking it down, seeing how much we've seen of Justin Fields and how he's looked in those games.
Can I preface this with something?
Sure.
Okay, when Georgia loses a game 36-16, Chip and I are going to do what we call critical analysis. And some people take that wrong. I know fans are hurting right now and they get upset. And they say, oh, these guys are jumping on the program, or they're questioning this, or they're being critical of that. It has nothing to do with whether or not we like the program or respect the program. We're here in Athens to find answers. We're here to diagnose and go over statistics as Chip did in his Towers take with a really thorough breakdown of what Justin Fields has done this year, the comparison I made to Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama and how ready he was when he played. A lot of fans said, well, geez, Alabama just threw a freshman in there against Georgia. Why couldn't Georgia just throw a freshman out there against LSU? So the articles that we do, the analysis that we do, we're going to be critical. And the head coach is critical too, Chip. Yeah. Kirby Smart came out there and said, we didn't play a good game. We played loud. We got out physical. He, as much as said they got out schemed. So when you're listening or watching our broadcast or reading articles, keep in mind, we're just trying to explain what's happening. When a team loses 36-16, by and large, Chip, most of the news probably isn't going to be real good about a game like that.
That's right. And we, as always, on the Chip and Griff Show, we definitely want to hear from you guys. There's a lot of you in here catching on. Be sure and share the Chip and Griff Show on your Facebook timeline so other people know we're out there doing this. And I know there's a lot of opinion on it. I mean, there's always a lot of opinion when it comes to quarterback play, and certainly there's a lot of opinion when you're the number 2 ranked team and you go on the road and get de-pantsed, as some folks I saw wrote. But, the grand scheme of things, I think that, Georgia and LSU could probably play 10 more times. I think it might come out differently a couple of those times. I think it certainly helped LSU being on the road and hindered Georgia. Being at home and hinder Georgia being on the road. But generally, I think the game wasn't as bad as the final score would indicate. Georgia did not play well. Georgia played by far the worst game. They weren't composed, and then there were some really bad decisions early on. We've written about that ad nauseum that I think affected the overall game. When it comes to quarterback play, as Mike was alluding to, Justin Fields really hasn't played all that much. And actually, so there's two ways to look at it. He hasn't played much. 102 snaps is what I came out with when I broke it all down. But the converse of that, you could also say, well, he's also a true freshman playing behind an incumbent starter, so maybe that's not that much. I think we'll probably see him more in coming weeks. I think the biggest question that I came out of having surveyed all that data was, is Georgia using him, in the best way possible? Right now, it's very sporadic. It's coming in the middle of possessions and leaving very quickly. It's been a while since we've seen Justin Fields have a possession. That was his. He kind of had that in the Tennessee game. He got 5 plays in a row. I think it was 8 plays in a row, and then he came out when Georgia got into the goal line situation, and Jake Fromm finished that drive, and Georgia ultimately scored. But there hasn't been all that many occasions where they just gave the game to Justin Fields. I think, Mike, I'm eager to hear your opinion, and we'll take some of your comments here on in the LSU game. It became evident that Georgia was not playing well on offense, that Jake Fromm was having an off day for whatever reason, and Georgia still didn't turn to Justin Fields. I think that's where you're hearing the most complaint in the fan base. Some of them just fans, some of them people like Tim Worley and other former players saying, hey, you know, you got a guy on your bench, bring him in, give him a shot. What was your feeling on that, on just not seeing Justin Fields come in kind of a relief situation there?
Well, because of what has happened in the first 6 games and where Justin Fields is at, it definitely wasn't time to bring him in. Now, the argument or the discussion we could have is, should Justin Fields have been used more leading up to this game, where he would have been prepared to come into a game on the road down 16-0. As it was, he's only thrown 1 pass on the road in an SEC game all year. He has not played in hostile environments. When he played at Missouri, he played 1 snap and ran the football. So Georgia has not made an attempt to get Justin ready for an environment like he would have been thrown into against LSU. So I don't think there's any question it would have been wrong to put him in there against LSU. The argument is, should they have used him more earlier? Now, to play devil's advocate to your point, for those 102 snaps, were those 102 snaps that Jake Fromm could have had to get more in sync with the receivers? You know, Jake Fromm only took 56% of the snaps through the first 3 games, Chip. You didn't really give Jake a chance to get in sync with a new receiving core. Remember, Godwin was out for most of fall camp, and Wims has moved on. And Jake does not look as comfortable throwing downfield to Riley Ridley or Holloman as he did last year with Godwin and Wims. And that's an element of Georgia game that's missing. Georgia is now 3 of 20 converting on 3rd and 9 or longer, okay? 3rd and 9 or longer, they're 3 of 9 converting. Jake's thrown 4 interceptions and been sacked 3 times. That's not only not having success, that's horrible. And what it means is, when the other team knows Georgia's throwing, they can't complete a pass. And that's what happened against LSU. Now, they had a great drive early, Chip. They ran 9 times, and they went 60 yards. And everybody says, well, why don't you just go back to that? LSU changed the defense. They've got a $2.5 million a year defensive coordinator. He's pretty smart. They changed the fronts. They changed the look. All of a sudden, Georgia wasn't getting the same defensive look. In fact, it wasn't even the same LSU personnel. If all things were equal, I think LSU would be pretty stupid if they ran the same defensive set as they did the previous series. So the next 5 carries went for 8 yards for Georgia after that second drive. So they did go back to it, and it didn't work. Look, Kirby Smart is a smart coach. Jim Chaney and Tucker, these are some of the best coaches in the business. Georgia's personnel was out physical, out executed, and LSU was the more desperate team, Chip. They went for it on 4 4th downs and made it. Georgia was aggressive on a fake field goal that backfired. To me, that's a lot of momentum that worked against Georgia on the road.
Well, there's a couple of things to say to that as well, and certainly there's no question that LSU adjusted their defense on there, but, you know, the same applies as well on offense. You're able to adjust. You know, I mean, there's different run schemes, there's different run blocking schemes, there's, you know, so they change things, so you change things as well.
But did you have that in your package before the game? Because LSU threw a front out there that they had not used all year, Ed Orgeron said.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. You may have these other things, but were you prepared for that defense? And then we're talking about, you're talking about putting Justin Fields out there when you're trying to make all these changes and adjustments?
Yeah.
I think that would have been hard.
So obviously Griff doesn't think that Justin Fields should have played in that game, and I think what we're talking about is in a larger scheme going forward is, what do you do with this guy? And you know, the Florida game is going to be very telling for me. Georgia has 2 weeks to get ready for the Florida Gators. As you'll all recall, I would imagine, coming into the LSU game, Florida had done a pretty good job on Joe Burrow, who I would say is the way he plays very similar to Jake Fromm in the way he operates and goes about his business. Florida, you know, blitzed a lot. They this is the Todd Grantham ways. We all know a lot about Todd Grantham from his stint as Georgia's defensive coordinator. They really got after Joe Burrow the week before, 5 sacks, 8 pressures, I think it was, something like that. So I would imagine, Jake Fromm can expect the same thing. Georgia has 2 weeks to get ready. What do you expect to see from Justin Fields in the next game? You think they incorporate a little bit more of Justin Fields, or you think it'll be more of the same? I mean, certainly, as you alluded to, Justin Fields, he is a freshman. There's only so much that he clearly has mastered in terms of the offensive sets and packages and things like that. So, you don't necessarily give him a full game plan. I think that's pretty clear at this point. But what do you give him, you think, heading into this Florida game?
Well, I think you'll try him earlier. If there's been a complaint I've had, I'd like to see Justin Fields used earlier in the game with the RPOs that he runs. But here's the thing. Florida has a really good defensive front. And it's going to be hard for Georgia to run the ball. And I know the thing I keep seeing over and over is, nobody stopped us. Run the ball, run the ball. Let me explain how this works. Jake Fromm goes to the line of scrimmage with a pass called and a run called. And depending on the defensive front, that determines his play call. So when the run game is working, generally speaking, it's because the defense doesn't have the box loaded up. They don't respect the Georgia run game as much this year as they did last year with Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb. Defenses are playing Georgia different. When Georgia doesn't run the ball, there's a reason for that. It's because the front is dictating it. What the defense does dictates the Georgia play call more times than not. The Georgia offense is based on taking what's given, and if there's 6 guys in the box, they're probably going to run it, and if there's 7 guys in the box, they're probably going to throw it. Well, the scary thing about Florida is they might be able to stop the run with 6 guys, Chip, and that could make things really hard for the Georgia offense. So I'd say we're going to see this pass game worked on, and I suggested, I don't think they're going to do it because I'm suggesting, I think they're going to do it on necessity, but they're going to shorten that receiver rotation and start throwing to the guys that are catching the ball and getting open. I just don't think Georgia can keep running 8 and 9 receivers out there a game when some of them are missing signals and running the wrong routes and dropping passes. And we've seen a lot of that this year.
That's definitely another thing is the missed opportunities in this last game. McCole Hardman running wide open.
Yeah, Jake missed a throw on that.
He missed that throw.
Thomas missed a block on a 3-man rush. Jake Fromm got blitzed with 5 guys in protection in the fourth quarter, and Andrew Thomas misses a block. Yeah. The All-American left tackle candidate.
Yeah, which happens from time to time. He got beat on the inside. That's twice I've seen Andrew Thomas beat on that inside move, and obviously he's a great left tackle, but he's still just a sophomore, and there's a lot of learning to be done. That's a bottom line on this team, I think, overall. Despite all the great expectations that were coming in to the season, Mike and I have both written a lot about that this is a 68.5% freshman and sophomore-based team. Certainly not a lot of experience. Those guys come with a lot of stars by their name, but they don't have a lot of experience next to their name as well, and that makes a lot of difference. Let's try to get some questions from you here or statements. We'll take whatever we can get. Gary Weaver says a lot of it can be placed on the play calling. Fromm hasn't been playing very well the last 2 weeks.
I don't disagree. I thought he has the best game of the year against Vanderbilt, and I do have those statistics. Go ahead. I'm going to read off these Vanderbilt statistics.
Michael Head says number 3 got his handed to him all game. He needs some training, or he needs to be set. That's a reference to Tyson Campbell, the freshman cornerback. He did have a tough day. That's not surprising. LSU knew there was a freshman over there, knew DeAndre Baker was at the other corner. They did throw on Baker a couple times, but I don't think he gave up much.
Here's Jake Fromm against Vanderbilt, his best game of the year. 17 of 23, 276 yards, 3 touchdowns, a 75-yard completion, and no sacks.
Yeah.
So that was his best game of the year coming out against Vanderbilt.
Right, definitely, by far. And, has a lot to do with who's playing on the other side of the ball. That's definitely sure.
Sure, and guys making plays for you.
Right.
Terry Godwin comes down with that pass. I saw McCole Hardman miss a ball would have been about a 25, 30-yard gain. Just went right through his hands.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I saw DeAndre Swift drop a pass with a lot of room to run.
Yeah.
Probably might have scored on that play.
Scarlett Moore, or is it Scarlett or Howard Moore? Says stop taking Holyfield out so much. The guy's a beast and is doing great.
I agree with that. I don't understand why we saw Brian Herring in the fourth quarter instead of Elijah Holyfield.
On that possession in particular, and that is, I agree 100%, and that is no disrespect to Brian Herring. I think Brian Herring is a fine running back. Kirby talks about him all the time. You know, the coaches, they say a lot of stuff. It doesn't matter who's in there and all that kind of stuff.
Go with the hot hand.
But you know what? It does matter. Yeah, it matters from game to game, and it matters, period. I mean, you know, if Brian Herring is playing behind Todd Gurley, you know, I think you want to go with Todd Gurley in that situation. And I'm not saying that Elijah Holyfield is Todd Gurley, but he was playing like him a little bit
on
Saturday. And that's one of those things you gotta feed the guy. And Georgia says that's what they do, but that's not necessarily what they did. There may have been some personnel groupings, decisions that went into that. But what did we see on that particular series? That series I thought really stunk.
Well, it started with and here they are down 19-9. I want to say with about 14 minutes left or 12:38 left. Plenty of time left.
Plenty of time, yeah.
And McCole Hartman had returned a punt 27 yards, so Georgia had a little momentum. It's a 10-point game. You're thinking same thing I am, Chip. Yeah. Georgia can still pull this out. First play, they run a jet sweep. Yeah. It came out of left field. I don't know. They've been running vertical and doing second down. I think it was a 4-yard gain.
It was a zone read to Herring, yeah.
And then it's 3rd and 5, and Jake gets sacked. One thing he can't do, because then he takes Blankenship out of field goal range.
Yeah.
LSU gets the ball, marches downfield, touchdown.
There's a zone read handoff, and that's what, you know, you don't ever know this completely, but you know the concept of a zone read is you're reading the defense, and it's a give or a go. But a lot of times it looks like that the decision is predetermined as to whether they give or don't give. I mean, 4-yard gain wasn't awful in that situation, but you hardly ever see the quarterback.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, just again, Georgia too aggressive here. It's 3rd and 6 at the 31. Right now you're set up for a 48-yard Blankenship field goal. We know he's got the range. How about running it on 3rd and 6, right? Because then if you pick up 4 or 5, you're still in field goal range. You got a chance of gaining more than that.
Yeah.
But instead, Jake throws and goes to throw and gets sacked for like a 9-yard loss out of field goal range. So that was
most of the time you would expect a very conservative call there to the middle, maybe, you know, and get a yard or two and
that was
set up
the fact that Kirby Smart felt like he needed a fake field goal on the first drive tells you that Kirby knew that Georgia might be in trouble in this game. The fact that he wasn't content to settle for a 31-yard field goal. Now, what he told us was, and Chip wrote a story about this after the game, when they saw that particular alignment on 15 out of 17 occasions, that fake would have run. So in his mind, 88% chance this play is going to work if we see them in that alignment. Now, probably a 90% chance Blankenship kicks the field goal. Why does Kirby go for it? Because he wants to land the first blow. He wants to put LSU in a catch-up mode, and he wants to be aggressive. And it backfired. Now, if he felt like he had the better team and he had the bases covered, Chip, I think he probably would have kicked the field goal. But I think Kirby knew that LSU was going to create some problems with their run game and with their run defense against Georgia.
Yeah, well, where I didn't like it is the fact that it was 3rd and 9, you know, and then that's where I think I understood they were looking for a little bit of a look. But, you know, it's I could have seen maybe having a qualifier in there as we'll definitely run it if we get the right look. If it's 35 or less, or something like that. It's awful. You know, Rodrigo Blankenship is a very good athlete by his own right, but to ask him to outrun, I mean, you think about it, he was a 2-yard loss. Even if he needed 2 yards, he wouldn't have made it on that particular play. And I very much would have loved to have seen them take the points in that situation. We got some great comments coming in here today, as you can imagine, on something like this. Let's see. I just had a good one here. One guy was pointing out here. I just went by it and I can't find you right now. I apologize for that. Said that Fromm wasn't ready to play last year, but he had to, and his reference is to Justin Fields. While he might not be ready to a certain amount of degree, sometimes you just got to throw him in there.
Well, here's the way I look at that. So sometimes the genius is in the simplicity, and I can go back and, you know, I covered Alabama and Tennessee and Michigan State. Let me tell you, some of the best teams had young quarterbacks, and because they kept it simple. Because they had a young quarterback, they didn't do much. They ran the ball. They kept the playbook shrunk down. They weren't able to change plays at the line of scrimmage like Jake does. So they dictated. They said, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. And Georgia also, nobody wants to hear this, but it's true, Georgia had a better supporting cast last year. Georgia had, the receiving corps was better. Terry Godwin was operating at a much higher level than he has this year, much more consistent. Javon Wims is in the NFL. Chubb and Michelle are a level above what Georgia has right now in the backfield. Thomas was at right tackle. You had a great, was Isaiah Wynn at left tackle? You were better at the offensive tackle positions. Ben Cleveland was healthy and playing. He's injured right now. You lost 5 out of your 8 defensive starters. You don't have the same shutdown defense. This Georgia team is talented, but it's not as good as last year's. It's as simple as that. And that's what happened. I mean, everybody's, well, we keep winning, everything's fine. You've been whistling by the graveyard. There's been a lot of issues that Kirby Smart has identified. Not that Chip and I are picking on. That Kirby Smart has told us the defense had better play better. They better knuckle up. We better play our best game. I'm worried about the pass protection. The head coach has said all this, Chip, and it all came to fruition.
Yeah, I wish we had ran a little bit more instead of panicking and passing, says Jimmy Wilson.
See, he missed the stat. After that drive, they ran 5 times for 8 yards.
Yeah.
In the rest of the first half. They did go back to it. It wasn't there.
Nobody seems to have liked the fake call, and that's pretty easy in retrospect. Of course, if he somehow gets around that corner and scores, we'd all been, wow,
he's a genius.
What an unbelievable call. Let's see what else we got here. Give us your questions, and we'll be glad to answer them. Stop making excuses, says Drew Roman, and he's talking about the Bulldogs, not me and you. Let's talk about that part of it. It is true that all of Georgia's goals remain in front of them. It's one loss. I mean, losing to LSU, I think all of us had this one. So
let me ask you, is this worse loss than the Auburn loss? Was this loss more lopsided than last year's loss at Auburn?
Well, no. The Auburn loss was certainly way more lopsided. The difference in that game and this one is just to me, is just kind of where it falls. Georgia has a lot of games left. In that game, Auburn was the next to last game. You didn't have much time. You kind of pretty much sewn up your side of the division. That's still to be determined here going forward. Obviously, Florida and Kentucky in the next 2 weeks are going to have a lot to say about it. And now, everybody is starting to build a little bit of a book on Georgia. Now you're seeing, what it takes to beat these guys, and you're going to see a lot more of it going on. Olivia Godwin is on here. Terry isn't being targeted but twice a game, if that, right now. That's Olivia Godwin, Terry Godwin's mom. How you doing, Mrs. Godwin? And she certainly has a right to her opinion as well. But we've talked about, Terry Godwin is certainly, and Griff just talked about that a couple of minutes ago, and I agree with him. I think we may see this rotation get shortened a little bit. One of the things you talked about this before, indirectly, this wasn't your point, but we hadn't seen Georgia tested. We hadn't seen Georgia have a lot of anxiety in games. In fact, we'd seen none of it in the first 6 games, and that makes a difference when you get into a ball game and your backs are against the wall. So Georgia's backs are against the wall. I'm eager to see how Georgia responds to that going forward.
Where LSU was this week. LSU lost to Florida, much like Georgia lost this game with turnovers. Everybody was second guessing Ed Orgeron and his staff, and they came home and took care of business. And wouldn't it be nice if Georgia and Florida was playing home and homes? I'll make my little pitch there. Yeah. I know everybody loves Jacksonville, but I love the home and home, and the Swamp is a great road environment. And I know those Florida players were talking about how they wish they could play between the edges. Yeah. It sure would be convenient to be playing at home against Florida instead of playing at Jacksonville.
Georgia saw a road environment in 1994. I think they lost 52-14 or something.
That was that. That was that.
But hey, y'all, let's hear your comments on this. So Griff, I'm really looking forward to this because he's never covered the Georgia-Florida game. He's never been in Jacksonville, so he's never seen the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, as they don't want us to call it anymore. But that's exactly what it is, and I'm really looking forward to Griff getting down there and getting a look at that the first time. And the great thing about it this year is that game's going to be so meaningful. I mean, that's where it sits on the schedule. It's usually the end of October, beginning of November, and there's usually going to be Eastern Division implications. And look, Florida, Georgia's won one in a row down there. It's not like they flipped the series when they beat Georgia 42-7 last year. Dan Mullen now in charge of the Gators, and they've got a chance. Florida has a chance to return to the SEC championship game. That would be for them the third time in 4 years. So that's a big game for the Florida Gators as well. And as we were talking about, Georgia's going to be a little bit desperate too. Let me find some more comments from you. Griff, what do you think about the Georgia-Florida matchup on first blush?
I like Georgia. I know Florida's coming off a nice win there at Vanderbilt, and they looked more impressive at home against LSU. I'm not sure how the whole Jacksonville thing works. Doesn't seem too neutral to me. It seems a heck of a lot closer to Gainesville, but I understand the ticket allotment is split. So I think that's probably going to be an exciting crowd. Will it have an effect on the game? Probably not to the extent that the LSU crowd did. But I like Georgia to win this game. I like their mettle. I like the focus that these guys have shown all year, and just because they got a little out-schemed and outplayed one game doesn't mean that these kids aren't going to come back and remind everybody why they started 6-0 and why nobody stayed within a touchdown of them. So I do think the rotation will shrink. I think the leaders will step up. Olivia Godwin, I hopefully your son will step up and take a leadership role. I know when I talked to him in Atlanta, Terry was exactly the kind of leader that Kirby Smart was looking for. And I know when Terry was out trying to get back from that knee and calf, it's hard to be a leader when you're not playing. But I think this is when guys like Terry Godwin, like Natrez Patrick, like Jonathan Ledbetter, have to put their foot down and have that team meeting and say, guys, we got to get tougher. And our season and our legacy is on the line. Is Georgia a one-hit wonder? Are we going to hear that, 10 years from now, boy, they sure were close with 2nd and 26? Or are we going to be talking about a program that went back to the SEC championship game 2 of the next 3 years or the next 3 years in a row? Georgia football is at a crossroads, and East supremacy is on the line, Chip. This is a really big game as far as the direction of this program and the future of a lot of these assistant coaches, too, for that matter.
Well, that's where it is these next 2 weeks, being at a crossroads and leadership in the locker room. That is where the season is being defined right now. That's the storyline behind the storyline. He's right. Terry Godwin, and Terry talked about this. I did a story on him. I think it was last week, heading into the LSU game, that, it was difficult to still have his leadership voice while he was, recovering after really the whole camp and all that took him out. But if you think about it, Alabama, during this unbelievable run, they've had one season, 2009, where they managed to go undefeated. Every other year, there's been a loss.
Sure.
And that's the formula for the SEC in general. There's usually always going to be that road loss somewhere, and you got to overcome from it. So this is Georgia's. They can't suffer anymore. You got Florida in Jacksonville, and you got Kentucky in the road. Right here is where Georgia's season is being defined. So what happens in these next 2 weeks is going to define it.
Yeah, like I said, I like Georgia's chances just because I think Kirby Smart's a great coach. And I said this on the Dog Nation forum, and I appreciate y'all joining us on this Facebook channel for Chip and Griff. I would also encourage you to go to our Dog Nation forum, and you can find that online as well. And we talked directly with a lot of fans there, and I had a post this morning. I said, hey, as of right now, October 18th, is that right? Go with the right date? What was that? October 16th. As of October 16th, 2018, if you ask me which program I could buy stock in college football, it would be Georgia. Over any program, over Alabama, over Ohio State, because I think Georgia has their head coach in Kirby Smart. I like the leadership right now with the athletic director, McGarity. I don't know if he's got his contract extended, but what I see from Georgia leadership and the direction of this Georgia program, not just on the football field, but ranked number 13th among public institutions, what I've seen seen in Athens since I moved here, this is the place to be, Chip. This is absolutely where I would invest. And in fact, it is where I invested when I had a chance to look for another job. Yeah. I said, I want to cover Georgia because I think they're going places, and I still think that even after Saturday's loss.
Well, I have a minute left. I do want to, Miss Godwin here says, when your receivers are waving their hands in the end zone wide open, that's a problem asking for the ball. But I know the place specifically she was talking about. That's when Georgia was down there. I think it might have been before the fake field goal play, but somewhere they were down there threatening an LSU, and Terry broke open on the sideline. He was wide open in the end zone. Fromm was on that side, but right at the second before Godwin broke open, he looked to the right side of the field. I happened to see this.
No, that's timing, though. That's where I get back to saying too many moving pieces.
Yeah.
You got to let your quarterback and your receivers get in sync. I mean, Jake's got 9 different guys running 9 different speeds. I mean, shrink it down to the guys that Jake is, like you always say, oh, look at that, they're on the same wavelength, they got the same chemistry. I don't sense that. There's too many guys running in and out at receiver, I think.
We're 1 minute away from breaking away here, so your commentary is great here, and we'll keep the conversation going. I promise you like that. Griff talked about it. The forum is a great place to go for this, and we monitor it regularly, and we'll come in there and weigh in, especially when the thread gets real hot and gets to going. We'll come in there and talk about it. So go on the Dog Nation forum, and we'll continue this conversation. But the bottom line is this. I don't think that Georgia losing to LSU necessarily means that, everything we thought about in the season is not going to come. I think it exposed a lot of weaknesses that we had talked about. We thought we were there. Now they've been exposed. And so the key these next 2 weeks, very, very important for the Georgia Bulldogs. Got an open week. Got to get ready for Florida. A lot of things you can tinker with. Where do you think we might see some changes between now and Florida?
I think Georgia realized they're going to have to throw the ball more. I know Kirby's been talking about chopping wood and wearing teams down, but you just can't afford to start slow in this league. Yeah. Your defense isn't good enough to start slow. We saw that against LSU. LSU found a way. They said if they got to go for it on 4th down, they went for it on 4th down. Chip, I think Florida is every bit as good on offense as LSU is. I think Georgia's got to get more aggressive with their pass game early.
Yeah, I think we may see a little bit more Justin Fields. Now, how that manifests itself as
depends on how successful he is.
It's a complicated question. What I would like to see Georgia do with Justin Fields a little bit more is kind of what Georgia did with DJ Shockley back when David Green was there, and that was 2 things. It's one, give him a series or 2 somewhere in the game, because that's what we haven't seen lately. Just handle it. This is going to be your series. You're going to go. Jake, you're going to sit here on the sideline. You're going to come back in the next series, regardless of what happens. And let's just let him have a series and get a feel for running the offense. I would love to see that. The second thing they did with DJ Shockley, and people forget this, David Green had a couple of bad games, and there were a couple of times where DJ Shockley came off the bench and lifted Georgia to victory specifically. I don't know that Justin Fields would have been able to do that. Probably not, just based on his span of experience and what we've seen from him in games. But, when it's not working, it's not working. What the heck? You might as well. You brought that under the 5-star in here for some reason, so go ahead and get him there. That's my take on it. Griff shares his takes regularly in his On the Beat column, and, we've got all kinds of stuff to write in there. Any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm eager to hear what Kirby's got to say tonight. I'm enjoying covering Kirby Smart, Chip. I feel like I've covered some Hall of Fame coaches, and Gene Stallings and Philip Fulmer, and I think Mark D'Antonio is a Hall of Fame coach, and I've really been impressed with Kirby Smart. And what I like about him is he tells it like it is. Now every now and then he might wax over a little bit on the position guy, whether it's Demetrius Robertson.
Oh, he's playing a lot. He's playing all the time.
Contributing greatly in practice. Every now and then, but for the most part, when you listen to what Kirby says about the games, I thought his post-game press conference, he was very honest, and I think Kirby has identified every one of these weaknesses publicly, and I expect him tonight to tell us exactly what they're going to do, and I expect the players to follow his orders, and if Georgia's good enough, Chip, they'll win. This isn't going to be a case of a team that's not focused. This isn't going to be a case of a team that's not prepared, and this isn't going to be a case of a team that has a coach that's not good enough. It may be a case of a team team that's a little bit too young. That may be the case, is the lack of experience. But I think the coaching and the focus has been on point. I'm eager to hear what Kirby's got to say tonight.
And we are always eager to hear from you. We appreciate you hanging out for the Chip and Griff Show. We'll be here roughly the same time next week. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye, y'all.